Have you ever shared something deeply personal with a loved one, only to later wish you had stayed silent? Maybe it was a pain you were carrying, a dream you were nurturing, or even a small success you were proud of. But instead of support or understanding, what you got was a raised eyebrow, unsolicited opinions, or even a quiet sense of distance you couldn't quite explain. Why is it that words, no matter how sincere, can sometimes become the very thing that cracks the surface of a relationship? In meditation practice, there's a quiet truth. The less you speak, the more clearly you see. Like a still lake only, when the water is calm, can the moon reflect fully. But one poorly timed, misplaced sharing can stir that calm into waves, both in your mind and in the minds of others. And here's something to reflect on. Even with those we love the most, to our parents, our spouse, our children, not everything needs to be shared. It's not about hiding. It's about holding space, protecting peace, respecting the delicate nature of human connection. Today, let's explore 5 things worth keeping to yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of compassion and wisdom. Each one comes with a story, a mental image, and a quiet truth to take with you into daily life. And we'll begin with the first one: nurturing your future plans in silence. Have you ever had this experience? Maybe it was just an ordinary evening dinner with the family, or a casual call with someone close. In a moment of enthusiasm, you shared an idea, a dream. Maybe it was something you had just started to believe in, a small business idea, a new project, a course you wanted to take. But instead of encouragement, you got silence, or worse, responses like, "Is that even realistic? At your age, you still dream of this stuff? Why don't you just stay comfortable with what you have?" And something inside you deflated. You felt small, unsure. The spark dimmed a little. Now, picture this: a quiet garden filled with unopened flower buds. Each bud is a dream. But if you get too eager, if you pluck them before they bloom, you'll never see the flower. Future plans are like that. They need time. They need silence. They need a private space to grow roots, strong and deep. In Buddhist teachings, there's a principle called the Noble Eightfold Path. And one of its steps is right thought, cultivating thoughts, rooted in wisdom and compassion. For this to happen, your mind needs stillness, protection from the winds of outside judgment. And those winds, sometimes they blow hardest from the people we love the most. It's ironic, isn't it? We think family will always understand. But every person sees life through their own filter past experiences, fears, expectations. When you share your dream, they're not seeing your vision. They're seeing their own limitations projected onto it. Over the years, I've listened to many older students of the Dharma share their regrets, not about the dreams they chased, but about the ones they buried. They wanted to learn to paint, to start a garden, to write, to travel solo, or simply to live differently. But they kept quiet. Or they shared too soon, and the reaction was enough to make them close the door on it. There's an old Zen saying, "Let the flower bloom when it's ready. Don't shake the branch. Don't call the wind." If you're holding a dream right now, big or small, treat it like a sacred seed. Give it time. Give it silence. Water it with consistency, privately. No need to prove anything. No need to rush. Because when that seed becomes a tree, when the flower finally blooms, you won't have to say a word. It will speak for itself. Sometimes silence isn't a lack of belief. It's the deepest kind of belief. A trust that says, this matters too much to expose too soon. Let it become real first. Let it become strong. And when it's ready, and you are rooted, then you can share that dream with your loved ones, not to ask for permission, but to simply invite them to witness something beautiful that blossomed from within you. 2. Spiritual practice and inner work. best kept to yourself. When someone first steps onto the spiritual path, whether through meditation, chanting, or just sitting in silence each morning, there's often a sense of something new blooming inside, a lightness, a quiet joy. And naturally, there's this urge to share it with a spouse, with the kids, like discovering a peaceful garden and wanting to invite the people you love most to walk through it with you. But not everyone responds the way you hope. Some people shake their heads and say, "Spirituality? At your age?" Others laugh softly, as if it's a fantasy or some kind of escape. And sometimes, even when they mean well, your sharing ends up making them feel inadequate. Or worse, it plants a seed of subtle pride in you without you even noticing. The truth is, the spiritual path is a journey inward. Like an underground stream, the deeper it flows, the quieter it becomes. And sometimes, the most powerful transformations don't need to be spoken. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi once said something worth remembering. The more you know, the less you need to say. Not to hide, but to protect. Because when a spiritual seed is exposed too soon, it can be swept away by the winds of praise, comparison, or expectation. Picture this: someone cradling a small flame in their hands. If they shield it gently, the flame grows stronger. But if they keep opening their palms to show it off, each gust of air threatens to blow it out. There are people who have meditated daily for 10 years, and no one around them even knows. Not because they're hiding, but because they don't need to prove anything. What matters isn't how many minutes you sit, it's the quiet transformation that unfolds within. In all my years working with older practitioners, I've seen this again and again. The most genuine seekers are the simplest. They don't boast about enlightenment. They don't talk about mystical visions. They just lives, softly, compassionately, and calmly. And it's their presence, not their words, that inspires others. The Buddha taught, "The wise remain silent, like a deep, clear lake. The deeper the water, the more still it becomes. And the deeper the practice, the fewer the words." If your practice truly brings you peace, let your loved ones feel that through the way you liven it, through what you say. And if they're meant to walk the path too, they'll kamino because you convinced them, but because they were moved by your quiet strength. Spiritual power doesn't need promotion. The more silent it is, the more solid it becomes. And sometimes, that silence is the greatest gift you can offer your family. 3. Sharing personal struggles and vulnerabilities. There are moments in life when we feel incredibly fragile, a sadness we can't name, a failure that knocks the wind out of us, or simply a day when everything feels heavy and unclear. And in those moments, from a place of raw honesty, we turn to those closest to us. We open up, hoping for empathy, a warm hand, a kind word. But instead, what comes back is worry in their eyes, stern advice, or worse, a heavy silence. It suddenly feels like your pain has become someone else's burden. Now imagine this: a calm, still night beside a quiet lake. The full moon is reflected perfectly on the surface. Then you toss in a small pebble. The ripples spread out, and the image of the moon becomes distorted. The moon hasn't changed, but the water has. It's the same with our pain. When we share it too quickly, especially with family, people begin to see us through those ripples, through their own worry, their judgments, their unfinished emotions. In Buddhism, there's a word for this. Upekkhaita means equanimity, the ability to remain steady, unattached to emotional waves. And it's not easy, especially with family, where love and worry are deeply intertwined. This doesn't mean you have to bottle everything up, but it does mean we need clarity, knowing when to speak and how to speak, so we don't turn our pain into someone else's burden. Practicing mindfulness means turning inward first, listening to yourself, recognizing your own suffering with understanding, not noise. Many older Dharma students have told me, before, whenever I was upset, I'd call my daughter, my husband, my friend. But the more I talked, the smaller I felt. Then one day I just sat. I said nothing. I breathed and watched. And that's when I realized some pain isn't meant to be shared. It's meant to be transformed. Silence in suffering isn't isolation. It's a deep connection to yourself. The Buddha never taught us to suppress our pain. He taught that suffering is real and it's the doorway to understanding. Maybe one day you'll tell your story, but not with trembling words instead, with steady eyes. Not to complain, but to inspire. And the person listening? They won't worry. They won't judge. They'll be moved by the quiet power you've built within. And you'll realize the most precious thing isn't someone else's comfort. It's becoming your own safe refuge. 4. Money and the wisdom of silence. One day, after years of saving, working hard, investing carefully, you finally reach a point of financial stability, maybe even a little success. And naturally, you're happy. You trust your family. You believe they're the first people you should share this with. So you tell them about a new investment, a bonus, or your plans to expand into something exciting. But then, something shifts. Someone in the family starts acting distant. Another starts asking to borrow money. Someone else doesn't say a word but the way they look at you. It's not quite the same. And you begin to wonder, did I say something wrong? Now, imagine this. Someone holding a handful of sand. As long as their grip is gentle, the sand stays in place. But the tighter they squeeze, the more it slips through their fingers until nothing's left. Money can be like that too. When you share too much, especially within the family, it can quietly slip away from the peace you had. Not because anyone's bad, but because money stirs up emotions, envy, expectation, disappointment, even ambition. Whether it's intentional or not, money can create distance between people who were once very close. In Buddhism, money itself isn't seen as evil, but clinging to money, attaching your identity to it, that's where suffering begins. The Buddha said, peace doesn't come from having more, it comes from knowing enough. Many older practitioners have shared their experiences with me. After retirement, some of them received a good amount of money. Naturally, they shared the news with their children or relatives. But the more they shared, the more pressure they felt. Family members started expecting help. Friends asked for loans. And slowly, what began as joy turned into discomfort, a feeling of being controlled, a feeling of guilt if they said no. Eventually, that peace of mind they had was gone. The truth is, being honest doesn't mean you have to expose everything. Sometimes, keeping things private is a form of protection for both yourself and the people you care about. Money should be treated as a tool, not your identity. You don't need to flaunt it. You don't need to compare. Just use it wisely and live simply. You can choose a quiet life. You can choose to help others when it feels right, not out of obligation. You can succeed without needing anyone to know. Because sometimes, true happiness comes from living quietly, not from being seen, but from being at peace. And if there ever comes a time when you feel pressured to explain your income, your assets, or your reasons for saying no, remember this. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it's wise. It's an act of compassion because clear boundaries protect relationships from being damaged by misunderstanding. And in the end, money is like rain. It comes and it goes. What matters is, did it water the field of your heart? If any part of this speaks to you, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, am I living to protect my peace or just to explain myself? And if it feels right, quietly close the door to oversharing so you can open up more space for stillness inside. 5. When you feel like speaking badly about someone. Someone hurt you. Maybe it was a sibling, a coworker, or even a close friend you once trusted. Their words, their actions, or sometimes just their cold silence left a bruise on your heart. So you carry that heavy feeling home, and you tell the story to someone in your family. You share it to let it out, to feel heard, to not feel so alone. But have you noticed what happens next? Every time you retell the story, the emotion comes back. And every time your family hears it, they start adding their own ingredients. Some anger on your behalf, some judgment, some worry. Eventually, it's not just you who feels hurt. Now, the people around you also carry that same negativity towards someone they've never even met. Imagine this: a crystal clear lake deep in the forest. One small scoop of mud stirred into the water, and just like that, the surface can no longer reflect the sky. Our hearts are like that too. And when we bring someone else's mud, even just a few words of criticism, and pour it into our loved ones, their clarity becomes cloudy too. In Buddhism, this is known as verbal karma. The Buddha taught, even if your words are true, if they don't bring peace, speak with care. When we vent to family, especially about someone else, we don't just share facts, we share emotion. And emotion spreads faster than anything else. What seems like a harmless story can become the seed of division. Our loved ones begin to form opinions, carry biases, and we ourselves get stuck in the loop reliving our pain over and over again. I once heard an older practitioner share this after attending a short retreat. He said, "I used to call my daughter every time someone made me upset, but after a few years I noticed she started seeing the world around me more negatively. Not because she knew those people, but because she only knew them through my anger." Right silence, or noble silence, isn't suppression or weakness. It's a mindful act born from wisdom and compassion. Wisdom to recognize that not everything we feel needs to be spoken. Compassion to avoid planting confusion or bitterness in someone else's heart. Some things only need 3 deep breaths. Some people don't need to be spoken badly of because time will reveal truth on its own. And some heartaches dissolve more quickly when we hold them gently in awareness instead of scattering them into words. Words are seeds. When we plant seeds of gossip or negativity in someone else's mind, we don't just lose our peace, we also make the people we care about part of our karmic story. But over time, when you become familiar with the peace of silence, you'll start to see you don't need anyone to know you were right. You don't need to prove anyone wrong. You just need your heart to be still, and everything else will settle in its own way. And so, we've journeyed together through 5 seemingly small things, but each one has a profound impact on the peace within our relationships. Sometimes, it's not that we say the wrong thing, but that we say it too soon. It's not that we're being dishonest, but that we haven't yet sat quietly enough with ourselves to know what needs to be shared. In Zen and Buddhist teachings, silence isn't emptiness, it's the space where insight begins. Silence is a form of love, a gift we offer to ourselves and our loved ones when we choose not to turn our feelings into burdens for others. Keeping certain things to yourself, like your struggles, plans, spiritual growth, finances, or frustrations, isn't about distancing from family. It's about protecting the sacred thread that connects us from being pulled by unnecessary tension. When your heart is calm, your words become seeds of wisdom, not sparks for misunderstanding. If there's one thing you take from this video, let it be a sense of relief that you don't have to share everything to feel seen. That quiet strength and privacy can be a powerful path to inner resilience. And if anything in this video spoke to your heart, I invite you to subscribe to the Buddhism Seeds channel and continue walking this journey of awareness with us. Please click like if something here felt meaningful. Share this video with someone you care about and leave a comment below so we can continue listening, learning, and cultivating peace together from the most ordinary moments of life. Wishing you a day of calm, clarity, and deep mindfulness.